I'm Harold Sylvester. I'm the Vice President of the company. Dan Slayball, President. Atlantic Linen Incorporated in December 1996. Basically, what the company did was residential products, screen porches, patio enclosures, things like that. You guys have all seen infomercials on TV about sunrooms. That's really who we were and what we were about. The company slowly evolved into commercial railing. As Ocean City construction boom took off, we were sourcing products out of Florida. Had some warranty claims on some projects we had installed, bad paint finishes, faulty engineering. By 2002, we had made the decision that we weren't going to be satisfied with sourcing products from other companies. The quality wasn't there. We wanted to do it our own way, and the only way we could get the quality that we were satisfied with was to bite the bullet and move into manufacturing. And we moved into manufacturing, and the company quickly grew. And now we're known more as a commercial company than a residential company. I started in the field. I was Randall Stafford. I think most of you guys know who Randall is. That's his assistant. And moved through as a foreman, and then eventually took a position in sales and led me to where I am today as the vice president of the company. The reason you're here for training is we've seen a huge problem with our internal employees with morale, and we decided to have meetings over the summer with everybody that worked in the installation department at the time, one-on-one with management, and start to understand what some of the concerns were with the company. Why were they unhappy working here? What was some of the frustrating things? And the one thing we kept coming up with was, you guys got new products you're bringing out, you're giving them to us, you're sending us out in the field, you're telling us how to just go figure it out. And it just kept coming back, employee after employee. There was lack of formal training. So that's the purpose of the training that's here. We're going to be going through a total of, Andy's at 5 products. Which may not apply to all you guys. Some of you guys are here with subcontracting crews that you will never see those products, but our employees will go through all 5 of the products. Each training will be about 4 hours for those products, and it'll be 5 hours for each of those products, and it'll be every Friday from now until spring. We'll be hosting these trainings with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 holidays that are in between. The purpose of training, again, we want to relieve the frustration from you guys in installation. We want everybody to have a baseline. This is how you do it. This is how we score you guys for subcontractors. Mark, we're going to go out and look at it and say, did they do it the way it was trained to do? Yes, it was. Mark did a good job as a subcontractor. We're even going to pay him. You guys that work for us full-time employees, you'll have evaluations on an annual basis, and we'll evaluate your performance based on this training. How are you trained? Are you installing based on how you're trained? You'll leave here with written instructions and a booklet that you can add each training into, and you can carry that with you as your manual as you're installing Atlantic Aluminum's products. Last thing I want to touch base on with training, I know I started training in my sales department back as early as maybe 2005 with sales training, and the first thing I would hear from everybody is, well, that's a good way to do it, but I got my own way and I do it over here. This is how, I'm going to tell you right now, the only way this company can move forward, and I've seen it happen in our sales organization, we went from 2 million to 10 million based on this principle. We're all going to do it, and if it's wrong, we're all going to do it wrong together, because that's the only way you can get to right. So if we got all these guys with all these different ways of doing something out there in installation, there might be a guy out there with a great idea that's 10 times better than the way we're doing it, but if he's not sharing it and coming back to us, and we're changing and adapting the way we do things, there's no way we're going to accelerate and improve. So just keep your open mind in the training. We're going to go through this process as we evolve. If you guys see something you want to bring up at the end of training, bring it up to Andy. Say, hey, this is what we've experienced when we're doing stairs or mounting a base plate or something like that. And he can start to develop and evolve the training process that we're doing here to improve and accelerate. So I want everybody to walk out of here today ready to install the way they were trained today, and if we look for ways to improve, we'll do it together and move all together into a more efficient situation. So that's all I have. Dan, do you have anything?
Just a benefit to standardizing, obviously, is to produce a better product for our customer as well. Company morale, and for everybody to have an understanding and having a solid baseline, you understand what they're doing and have the confidence in what you're doing is what Harold touched on. But ultimately, too, we want to produce a product that is superior for our customers and that is a standard that we can live by. Our number one goal was to own excellence in our governing principles, and this is the first step of doing that. And we have failed as a company in the past to produce those standards. It was all what we call tribal knowledge, knowledge in our heads, knowledge in Randall's head, and then some of the veterans here. This is a way of getting that knowledge from 15 years of this company, getting it standardized, formalized in your hands, so you have something to reference to. So that's why we're doing this, and I appreciate everybody coming out today. So,
I'm Andy. I don't know everybody in Mark's crew, but I know some of you. I am the one I've been working on this for a little while. I'm trying to put this together, make it as easy to understand as possible. In front of you, in your binders, can you please open them? In the front flap, you should see there's a thing like tabs there. They're very front. You pull that out real quick and hold it up for everybody. That right there, that's what you're looking for. I need you to break them in half, and I need you to tear some pieces. I need you to make 4 different tabs. The first tab you're going to make is going to say training on it, and that's going to go in the very first sleeve that you have. First envelope, and progress real quick. The first one, this first page needs to say training on it, and that's where that's going to go. Make that one first. After you have training, then you need to put one that says 200 series. When you're done with that one, then the next one, the next SOP needs to say Handrail. And then on the very, very last tab behind there is fasteners to use for engineered railing. The one right in front of that is going to say resources. And then as time goes on, different products will hang you more resources for that particular part of your binder. And then you can put those in for me.
All right. My name is Eli Gonzalez. I am a foreman here at Atlantic Aluminum Products. I'm also the service representative, so I see, I've been trained in the first aspect of how to do, how to install and everything, but I've also seen a lot of the what don't you use out in the field. As they come to my mind, I'll try to see if I can incorporate them in things that I haven't seen, or things that I've seen. So I've been here for 12 years. Been in construction for 15 years. I'm sure that some of you have been here 20. How many guys have done 20 years of construction? 20 years. 25 years. 30 years. Okay. One of the things that I found out is I don't know it all. I don't know about you guys, but there is always room to learn. Always ways of doing things faster, improving on ways that you do things. You don't know it all. And by the end of this class, this is going to give you a basic knowledge of how to install our products. You're not going to be experts. Time is going to give you that. Time is going to give you what you need as far as to be an expert in installing this rail. The more you do, the better you'll be. But this is just a basic line of instruction so that you can understand how it goes together, and a lot of your codes and stuff like that for the state of Delaware and other places as well. When I was in the military, one of the things that our drill instructors told us was, you're getting trained in hand-to-hand combat. And don't be going out there picking a fight, because you're going to get your butt beat. You're just getting trained in a basic way of how to defend yourself. But you're not an expert. You're not a martial artist. You're not a boxer. This and that. They put time in. So the more time you put in, the better you'll be. Governing principles. We have 8 governing principles. It's a standard, a way of how we do things here at Atlantic Aluminum. It's a way of life, so to speak, here at Atlantic Aluminum. So some of our guys, I don't know if Mark, if you've trained any of your guys in it or not, but hopefully by the end of this training seminar, you guys will have an idea of what Atlantic Aluminum expects out of you. But some of our other guys, can I get any volunteers who wants to say the first governing principle? First governing principle, anybody know? All right.
Own excellence.
Own excellence. Own excellence. If you have your vehicle parked out in the parking lot and somebody takes a sheet of plywood that's covered with concrete and leans it up against your vehicle, how is that going to make you feel? You're going to be ready to get in rooster mode, pop your chest out, and get ready to fight somebody. Am I right? Come on, guys. I mean, seriously. Okay, anybody that hunts, you got a brand new gun, brand new shotgun, just bought it. Costs you $1,200, which in some cases that's a moderate type of shotgun or whatever. Some of them cost $2,500, $3,000 or even more. Takes it and just throws it on the ground. How's that going to make you feel? Own excellence, guys. If somebody is buying a product from you, don't scratch it up. Don't damage it and nick it and, just treat it like any old thing. Just own it like if it's your own. Treat it like if it's your property. You know what I mean? There's nothing worse than somebody coming inside your house that you just got cleaned, wearing muddy shoes and tracking it all over your brand new carpet. We have to use our heads, try to treat things like if it's our own. Okay? If you ever want somebody to get excited, talk about something that they're passionate about. Why? Because they own it. And so their face brightens up and they'll just get crazy excited and start, it's because they own it. They're passionate about it. Be passionate about what you do. Own excellence. Number two, remember this acronym, OIMS PUMP. OIMS PUMP. OIMS-PUMB. Number two, anybody? Invite trust and respect through action. Invite trust and respect through action. What you do when you are not being seen is what people are going to think about you. If you were told at the end of a job to get the tools, somebody's trusting you to be in charge of rounding up the tools. Next thing you know, you guys get loaded up on the truck and you're missing tools. Over a period of time, the more you forget, what's going to happen to your job? You're going to lose your job. You ain't going to have a job. If you continue to not be a trustworthy person, you're not going to be employed. Somebody's not going to be wanting to work with you. Okay, it's just not, it's invite trust and respect through action. If somebody's working with you one day and then next thing you know you're working with somebody else and you're constantly talking about the person that you just worked with the following day, Delaware small, fellas. Delaware small, word will get around. You're not going to be trustworthy in their eyes. Be trustworthy. If somebody trusts you with something, honor that. Honor your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, be somewhere at that certain time. Be trustworthy. Okay? Next. Anybody? Starts with an M. Maximize time, energy, and resources. Maximize time, energy, and resources. We all have tools. Each tool has its job. Don't use a drill as a hammer. It's not good. Don't use a drill as a hammer. Try to take advantage of all the resources that you have. The number one thing that a lot of times, the resource that most of us have, and there's no excuse many times, is our phones. If you have any questions, call someone who knows what they're doing. I'm pretty sure you've come across a lot of situations where, if all you tell them is, why didn't you call me? That's the first thing that comes out of your mouth. You know what I mean? If you're in charge of a job and somebody's working with you, you know exactly what you need to do, and that person that's working with you is a little lost, but is wanting to figure it out on your own. That person is burning time trying to figure it out on his own, being too prideful to ask. Just drop the pride, ask. I had one guy, yesterday I went to a service call. Won't mention any names or anything like that. It was 100 series rail. The bases on the rail, say this is a straight line right here. Well, the bases have the ears facing out. Why? So that you have lateral strength on the rails. It's pretty basic principles. You don't put the bases to where the ears are in line because you're not going to have any lateral strength either way. Well, guess what this individual did? Put them in line with the rail. There was an elderly lady that we installed the rails at her house, and we got a phone call that the rails were loose. So in my mind, I'm just thinking I'm going to a call where maybe the epoxy failed on, which is understandable, or the anchor failed or whatever. And when I go there, the bases are installed wrong. Before the individual left, I asked him, I said, do you know what you're doing? He shook his head and said, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. If you don't know what you're doing, don't be afraid to ask. Okay? Do not be afraid to ask. Why? Because you are putting more than just yourself in liability. You know, if she would have fell and something would have happened, that would have put our company our company in liability. We can't afford that. None of us can afford that. We none can afford to lose our jobs over something silly that just takes a couple minutes of explaining. Turn the base, this is the way that the base goes. Next. Seek understanding first and always, just like I kind of went over that. Seek understanding first and always. When you're trying to figure out all your questions on your job, when you get your work order and you're analyzing it and you're going over it, and you might have questions or whatever, don't be afraid to write down questions so that you don't forget, and try to find out as much information about what you're doing as possible at the time. Try to figure it out. If you get to the job site, there again, you got your phones. If you see something that you just don't understand or don't know where to start or begin, whatever, seek understanding. Seek understanding. Try to understand what you're doing before you tackle it. That's part of also maximizing your time, energy, and resources. Next, preserve dignity and honor. Preserve dignity and honor. Give me the next one as well, Andy, please. Uphold integrity. These two go hand in hand. Preserve dignity and honor. It's whenever you are speaking about somebody, the context through which you are speaking about that individual is whether or not you are, holding him up in dignity. Don't trash somebody. Our goal is to help each other out. That should be your goal. That should be our goal as human beings. But in Atlantic Aluminum, your goal should be to help each other out. Why? Because if you help each other out, it's only going to help us. You're only going to help yourself. If you keep all the knowledge of a certain product in your mind and don't help the person next to you, your days are going to be long. And I don't know about you guys, but when I go to a certain job, I want to be done with that job as fast as I can, and I want to get out there. Move on to the next one, or go home, be with my family. Some of you guys that are on the road a lot, you guys know this more than anybody. You want to go back home to where you have things you got to do. You know what I mean? You have a house to tend to, you have family to tend to, kids, so forth and so on. Help the person out. Help whoever's with you. Keep them, uphold dignity and honor when you're talking about them, when you're speaking about them. It's just the right thing to do. And upholding integrity is just think about the hull of a ship. As long as the hull of a ship is whole, then it floats and it does what it was designed to do. But if there is a breach in the hull, guess what's going to happen in that ship? It's going to sink. Okay, just the smallest hole can bring down a big ship, believe it or not, if not attended to. Uphold integrity. Okay, don't be the weak link. Next, move towards the goal as a team. You have a goal every day. It's to work, to do your job, to do it to the best of your ability, to make the most money that you can for yourself and for the company. We have incentives here for our guys. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that there's a certain incentive with Mark is if you're making him more money, guess what's going to happen? Odds are you're going to end up getting more money as well. And the same thing. Okay, I'll take that back. I'll track that. But with Atlantic Aluminum, we have incentives. We have profit sharing. If the better you do on your jobs, the more that will reflect on you when the profit sharing comes around. And it does happen. I've seen it. Next, build camaraderie through fun. There is nothing worse than going to a job site with somebody that is just the whole day. The whole day just being upset, just kicking things around. You affect your environment. The bottom line is you affect your environment. The most productivity that you will get out of any individual that is working with you is when they're feeling pretty good about themselves, when they're confident. If you are bashing whoever you're working with, odds are you're not going to get too much productivity out of that person. You think you're going to get productivity, but all they're going to do is just kind of go like this and follow you and hand you tools and do whatever. Make it fun. Make it fun. Make it an enjoyable experience. There's nothing worse than working for somebody that's miserable all the time. I had a job in New Jersey years ago. It could have been an awesome job. Working in industrial construction, constructing bulkheads for bridges, elevated grades and stuff like that. Working with big equipment and everything. Getting paid $30 an hour, but I always got blamed for everything, even though it wasn't on my fault. I got blamed for it, and it was absolutely miserable. Every day I woke up, I hated working there. Hated it. Did it because I was trying to make a better life for my family. So I do what I had to do, or I did what I had to do. But it was absolutely miserable. Make it fun when you're out there. You have a choice to make every single day to get up out of bed and to enjoy life. I can't make that choice for you. You have to make that choice for yourself. Make it fun. Not only for yourself, but for whoever you're with. These are our 8 principles. Look at the first letter. Points, pump. Remember that because you will be required to put that on your test. Alright, next, 200 series rail. Put the first thing in. 200 series rail is AAP's economic rail that meets the same engineering requirements as our 100 series. We needed a rail that was going to be more affordable, that met the same specs as our 100 series, but that was more feasible to basically sell. People, it's more affordable, it looks good. I kind of, it's growing on me. At first I wasn't too crazy about it, but it's growing on me more and more. It's a pretty attractive looking rail. But we needed something that would compete with a lot of our competitors. We have mid-grade, we have our top of the line, and then we have our lower grade. Next, the marketing name for this is iRail. These things will also be on your test, so just remember this stuff, guys. The market name is iRail. Anything with the letter I seems like it's selling like crazy. They have something called an iWatch, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because you have an iPhone that has a watch in it. And most of your phones have watches, but it's selling. It's selling. That first letter makes a big difference. And congratulate our sales team and our company for coming up with that. It's a pretty good name. All right, installation. What's the first thing? What's the first thing when you are getting ready to get your job? What's the first thing that you need to do? Anybody?
Inspect the job.
Anybody? Inspect the job. That's pretty good, pretty good.
Lay out your
All
work
right. Read your work order. That's exactly right. Read your work order. You will have no idea what in the world you're doing until you sit down and look over your work order. Okay? You won't know where you're going, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what tools you need. Read your work order. Take time to read your work orders. You will gain the most understanding about it. And the more time that you take to read it, what I recommend is a lot of times is, and we ran into it this past week. I was working with Tom. And sometimes, you know, like I said, I've been here 12 years, but trying to remember everything is tough sometimes. And there's, as a foreman, we have to make sure that we're not only looking after what we do, but we're looking after those that are with us and working with us and shop guys. I mean, we're all covering each other's backs. So we had a mistake in a profile of a railing, and I had to come back, but I owned up to it. I said, you know what? It was my fault. I should have picked it up. It should have never left the shop. I should have read it. So mistakes still get done, but if we are willing to take time and read your work order, start from the very top and start looking through, analyzing everything, looking at the profile of what you're doing, looking at what series it is, looking at what type of fasteners you need, finding out your mounting details, looking at the layout, looking at where in the building do they go. There's nothing worse than installing something where it does not go. It's terrible. You don't want to do it, trust me. Read your work order. Load up. Load up. It is your responsibility to make sure you have everything that you need. Everything that you need. Do not blame others for missing a product or a fastener. Okay? Guys, don't blame your helpers. Do not blame your helpers. And helpers, you know, the blame game gets us nowhere. It's just the truth. It's not going to change the fact that it was done. Okay? The thing is, what are we going to do to not make that same mistake? What can we do to make things better? Okay? Why? Because it ultimately affects us. If you help the person that made the mistake and they correct that mistake, guess what? You won't run into it. Most of the time, you won't run into it again. And if it continues to be a problem, you still need to try to help out because we need to eliminate it. And sometimes certain positions are not for certain people, but we need to know that. And the only way that we're going to figure that out is by what? By you guys giving that input. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid. We got to help each other out. We got to have each other's backs because it's going to affect us as a whole. If we become more effective as a company, if we become more productive as a company, if we're producing in high numbers and satisfying customers at a high level, guess what? Word's going to get around and we're going to have business for a long time. For a long time. Okay? And your place in the company or wherever you may be is just you're going to grow. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we become more effective and more productive. Open your mouth and speak. Prepare installation site. Prepare installation site. When you go to the job site, one of the first things I like to do is do a walk around. Do a walk around and basically try to get an evaluation of, first thing is where to park your vehicle. Where is going to be the best place to park your vehicle to where you can be close to your work, close to the stairwell where you need to get stuff up and down off the building, and whether or not it's going to be a good spot to park and you won't get the vehicle damaged. Because that has a big impact on where you are, where you park. And next point of contact is your superintendent of the job site or whoever's in charge. Make contact with the superintendent and find out where is your starting point. Sometimes you may leave your shop, wherever you are leaving from, and you have an idea in your head of where to install. Where is your starting point? You get to the job site, next thing you know, you talk to the super and he's saying, you guys can't start there, they're doing blah, 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 they're putting deck coating on, they're doing this, they're doing that, you guys can't work there right now. Have a plan B. Have a plan B. Also think about weather. Think about weather. If you're working and it's incredibly cold, it's freezing, start where the sun is if you can. Start at the warmest point of the building. If it's blazing hot, try to work where the shade is. Be considerate of those who you're working with. You know what I mean? For those of you guys that are assistants, you know, make suggestions to your foremen. Don't hesitate to make a suggestion to your foreman. You know, sometimes they get so wrapped up in everything else that they're thinking about, they just forget simple things like that. Because they're trying to make sure that they have everything else that they need for the job. Make suggestions. Don't tell them where it will start and have an attitude about it, because that's the worst. But just make a suggestion. Hey, why don't we start from here? Why don't we, do this? You think this might work? You think this might be pretty good for today or whatever? Don't forget to make suggestions. Stage all your pieces. Stage all your pieces. As you see in here, we lay down blankets, try to lay them down, not on the concrete. Not on the concrete. Try to find safe areas, guys. Safe areas where you can store the product, where it won't be stolen, first of all. When you go in certain places, certain towns, you don't want to go into inner city Baltimore and leave your stuff out on the yard. Guess what? It's going to grow legs faster than you. It's going to be gone. And you will be liable for that. Okay? So, save all your pieces in safe areas if you can. Talk to the superintendent, gain that understanding from him. Where's a good storage area that I can put all my stuff so that I can be effective and work in and out of my truck easily, and not walk into a truck that's jam-packed with all the rails and everything. Okay, stage in a safe area. Time. If you have rails, put them on a balcony or something like that. Once you erect those rails, tie them together on the balconies. That's a lot of times what we used to do. Okay? And if you have to cover them up so they don't get damaged. I mean, whatever you got to do. It shouldn't take you, an hour to do that. But if you guys can do something, figure out 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever, that'll keep the rails safe, keep you from having to worry about cleaning, the rails up, touching them up or whatever. Do what you got to do. Cover yourself. Cover yourself. Organize tools. Organize tools. Get all your tools ready to go into the job site. Prepare hardware and fasteners. A lot of times, if you guys are on the road, one of the things that we used to do was get anchors ready. As you're going to the job site, if you're using stud anchors, start getting them ready. Thread them in. You know what I mean? On the ride. It won't take you but maybe 10 minutes to get a bucket full of anchors ready, or if you have to put plastic washers on. Anything that will help you with time. So that when you get there, you're not worried about this one less thing that you're worried about doing. It's already ready. And you can just go and start attacking everything else. Anything that you can do. Making them knuckles for 200 series rail when you get to a certain point in the job site. You don't want them clanking around as you're riding, because they're going to get damaged. But if you're like half an hour from the job site, make them knuckles. Because that's going to take up time when you get to the job site, and while one person's trying to do everything, you're just going to be sitting in the back of the truck when you can be doing it while you're riding. Okay? You're installing the rails. Most of the time on these buildings, whenever the higher the rise, I like to start from the top down. It's just better that way. If you start from the bottom up, what's going to happen with all your concrete dust and everything else that people are doing up there, it's going to just trash the rail that you just installed below you. Okay? Common sense, start from the top down, unless, you run into one of those supers that's a little bit backwards and starts coding and everything up there, and once you're there at the job site to start, or they want you to install the first floor because it's the model, that's understandable. Do what you have to do, but in all cases, try to, sometimes if you talk to the super ahead of time, you guys go a couple days before you're there, or your guys are there, and talk to the super and try to communicate with them about starting points and how it can be a lot more beneficial for them. Most of the time they'll work with you, and they'll try to have you start. They might have you maybe put a small section in the first floor, all depending on how large of a job site and what area it's at. But just try to communicate if you can ahead of time. Just start from the top, work your way down. On stairs, extremely critical on 200 series. Why? Because when you're starting with the stairs, you do your level sections, but then if you try to work your way from the bottom up, when you're installing your posts, guess what's going to be in your way when you're working your way up the stairs? Everything that you just installed. Okay? Work your way from the top down, that way you're not working against yourself. So from the top down. If mounting to wall or columns, use cuffs. Do we have them here? Do we have cuffs? These are your cuffs. Okay? These are your cuffs. These are for level rails only. Okay? Do not try to somehow rig these to work on the stair rails. Rigging is bad. Don't do rigging, please. Okay? Level rails. find your height, to use a blocking, and you'll see when Scott comes up here to demonstrate, Scott Eastman, you will see him do it. You put blocks down, you put the rail, all depending on where your toe kick is. And sometimes if you get to a job site where that may increase, you know what I mean, to a certain amount or whatever, all depending on your install. If you're installing the columns, you have your fiberglass columns that sometimes have a trim on the bottom. That might change. But for in any case, if you have quite a number of rails, make yourself a jig. Make yourself a jig, a small block or something like that that you guys can just throw in there, put the rail on top, fasten it on, okay? These things, the cuffs slide on, okay? These ears go down, because there's only one way these things will go on. The other ones are kind of like a rectangle shape. They can go either way, but to help yourself out, try to put them with the ears up. Put them with the ears up. Just remember, the ears are going to be facing each other. Now when you're doing 3-line, it's a whole different beast, okay? Ears are going to face, the 2 top ears, we're going to, the bottom channel and the middle channel are going to face each other, and then this top one's going to be down on the 3-line. But for our sake right now, for basic construction, just remember, ears, top and bottom on 2-line are facing each other on level. You're going to use 4-inch, number 12 stainless steel Phillips head screws. Right here. 4-inch, okay? If you are mounting, in some cases you may have to, in some installs, you might have, say you're installing 4x4 newels because that's what the customer paid for and that's what they want. Guess what? When the customer pays for it once, most of the time that's what we're going to do. There's certain applications where if you're if you're mounting to something metal, aluminum, steel, whatever it may be, the situation, then 2 inches will be fine, okay? Why? Because there's no sense in threading more and incurring more cost for no purpose at all, okay? So 2 inches will be fine. But in any case, wood or anything else, 4 inches, okay? That's what our engineering supports. Fasten down bases. Kind of on these here to wood. When you're using we're going to use 5-inch stainless steel lags. Why? Because that's what our engineering supports. Most of what we have, most of what we tell you is because that is what our engineering supports. That's what the rails are designed for. So just try to stick to that. Anything deviating from that, there again, liability is falling on the company. Okay, it's bad. Try to make sure you're always thinking about the company. All right, part of your excellence. If you stay with the rule, 3/8 from right here, the edge of the base, 3/8 from the edge on wood. That will put your hole right in the center of this 2x where it needs to be at. Okay? So on wood, remember that number, 3/8 of an inch from the edge on the bases. Drill down using a 5/16. 5/16. That is what we're still using, Scott, correct?
Yeah, 5/16.
5/16. We used to do a quarter, but you're putting a lot of stress on your impact or whatever you're using. Okay? Especially if you're using a cordless. I don't know what your guys use, Mark, but if you're using a cordless, it's putting a lot of stress. So use 5/16, you'll get just as much strength and a lot less stress on your drills, on your impactors when you're driving them in. A lot of times we get 12-inch bits. 12-inch bits, a lot less, you have to bend down and stuff like that, So use a longer drill bit, 5/16, pre-drill your holes. Boom, you know what I mean? And if somebody behind you can follow, put the lags down. You're going to level everything, make all your posts level. There's certain situations and circumstances where you're not going to be able to do it. If you have, say somebody installs a deck and say this side's up like this and this side's all cockeyed, okay, one of them, you got to give and take. The end result is you want this post leading to your step. You want that one to be plumb. as possible, okay? And then just do the best you can to observe all the rules and regulations of where you're at. If you over shim, you're gonna increase your toe kick by too much. So keep your toe kick in mind when you're shimming. If you, if some of these places I've seen, we had a job in Critchfield where another company installed a railing and they were busted on a 1/16 of an inch. Okay? They made them take a whole stairwell down for a 1/16 of an inch. Now previously this company had problems with violations. So when you get red flagged by code enforcement, guess what? They're going to be sticklers and they will make you take it all down. We end up going there and finishing the job. All right? But it's very important that you observe code and that you know the codes of where you're installing at. Very, very important. The stair rails. Fasten the swivel cuffs to the rail. You're going to start out installing your cuffs just like this. I don't know if that'll stay or not. But you're going to install your cuffs to the rails all the way around. Next, you're going to install the rails to the top post. When you put it on this top post, you're going to fasten it on there, and then you're going to bring it down. So this reveal right here is where you want it to be. While you're doing that, the person that you're with is going to take the post. You're going to put the post here on the side. You're going to figure out where your cap's going to be in relation to this right here. You don't want, in most cases, you don't want your cap below this stringer here. Okay? In most cases, you don't want your cap below here. All depends. You're going to put your cap above. You're going to mark where your holes are, and you're also going to put a line on the bottom cuff of the rail. You're going to put a line on the bottom cuff. You're going to remove the post. You're going to drill the post. You're going to put the post back up there. You're going to drill the hole. You're going to drill the post with 3/8 drill bit, with a 3/8 drill bit. You're going to put the post back up there. You're going to install your cuffs on. Okay? And it's a lot easier to install it not on an angle, but just leave it up in the air when you're putting the cuffs on. Leave it level. And then you can shimmy it down. Try to make sure that when you're putting the cuffs together, make sure that they're snug. Because if you have a cuff that rattles, there's nothing worse than doing a whole entire staircase and then having to take it back apart and tighten the cuff because it's loose. Okay? So try to make sure that they're snug. And once you got them snug, you can kind of shimmy them down right to where you need them to be after you've installed your post. Okay? Once you've installed the cuff to the post or the post to the rail, then shimmy it down, and then you're going to put it right where your reveal, you want your reveal to be the same all the way down. The most important thing that you want to do when you're figuring out and determining this height here, because this is a little deceiving right now, because this post, when you'll get it, we leave this post long. Okay? Because all depending on where you are from the edge, if this is concrete and you're a little bit further away from the edge, then guess what this rail right here is going to do? It's going to go up higher, right? So this is a little deceiving. You will have to cut that post down. So when you're figuring out where you're going to put your brackets right here, lower it down, make sure that you're going to achieve from the nose of the step. You need to make sure you have 42 inches. Okay? Make your tape as plumb as possible, and you should have 42 inches. Not from this backside. You're not going to read it on this backside, but this leading edge right here. Okay? I've had helpers with me a lot of times when they first start to understand concepts of railing and stairways. They like to read this side Well, if you read this side, you're going to be a ½ inch lower, and you're going to fail. Okay? Leading edge. Remember that. Those are the steps. All right, go ahead and go a couple stairwells closed off, use a big lag. Okay. Some of these stringers, this is an open stairwell right here. Okay? This is an open stairwell, and you're going to do surface mount in most cases. All right? Unless these things are flush right here, and they require you to mount on the side. All right? But most of the cases, when you see something like this, it's because they're wanting to have as much tread as possible, so, you know, they're trying to cheat and do what they can. But you are going to mount on the surface on something like this. On the side there is a closed stairwell. And you're going to mount it, and if the underside is finished with drywall, you're going to use 5-inch lag. You're going to use a 5-inch lag. If there is not sufficient wood to support the strength of the rail, communicate that with your super. Okay? He would rather, and I hope he would rather, or she would rather take that back down and give you the support that you need and to have somebody fall and to put that company at risk. Okay? So please communicate with the super if you guys come across situations where it's not going to structurally support. We will do everything we can to make sure that our railing is safe. If you guys get to a job site and it does not have blocking, if you communicate with the superintendent that we need blocking, you go through, you drill all your holes. Guess what? It's getting close to the end of the day and you don't have your blocks in place. Just do the blocks yourself. Do the blocks yourself and we'll work something out. Okay? The blocking doesn't take long. All depending on the situation. I mean, if you guys are working, you know, off of a 3-story, 4-story building or whatever, and it's on top of some kind of a catwalk they have on the side of the building, you don't have a 40-foot ladder, that's understandable. I guess you're not doing the block. Okay? And in those cases, we'll have to work something out. But in any case that you can finish a job and not have to go back there, okay? In that time that you take installing these blocks, believe it or not, you're saving the company money for making an additional trip there. So go ahead and install the blocks yourself. Finished stairwell, or finished underneath side of the stairwell, you're going to use lags. All right. Shim is needed. That's pretty obvious. You're going to be required to shim your posts. However, if you are installing these rails and you're going all the way down, okay, you can do it 2 ways, but most of what we're teaching right now is go ahead and plumb your posts as you're going down. When you get to the bottom, you can make whatever adjustments you need to make. If you have 4 sections and you're installing a long stairwell, by the time you get to the bottom, if you see that the rail is going like this, or if you know ahead of time, you look at your side stringer and you know that it's going like this, don't shim it as you go down. Shim your end posts, and you should be able to look at your bottom post and your top post duck down. You should be able to see the straight shot. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take a long rod, a long 200 series rod that goes in here that holds these rails together, and I'll bend the top here, or I'll bend the top of the rod. I'll stick it in there and I'll put a string line and leave the string line right on there, and I'll make my adjustments as I need to. That ensures you that your rails are going to be straight. If you want to eyeball it, that's fine if you have a good eyeball. But if you have a lazy eye, guess what? Your rails are going to get kind of lazy too. All right, string line is always a safe bet. Repeat until you get to the bottom of the stairwell. Just work that same process all the way down. All right, finishing up, you're going to cut off the tops of your posts. All of these posts here are going to be long. Like I said, most of the time, see how you can see this one here, how it's a lot longer, and that's what I was talking about up there. You're going to have that they're longer. On this scenario there, we pre-cut the top of the post when we were installing it. And so the last class got to see what the finished profile was. But because we were wanting more hands-on, we went ahead and removed them so that you can get some hands-on time installing these, and we can make sure that you're doing it right. One of the other things that we found is with this 200 series rail, because of the profile of this cap, when you are figuring out, and it's something that I forgot to go over, when you're putting this post on here, make sure that your rails, okay, are plumb. Make sure you use your torpedo level on your rail after you've mounted it on. Once you put the post on and you fasten your bracket on in the bottom, once you fasten your bracket to the post on the bottom, I would tech your top with one tech, and I would put on the bottom if you have to put one tech. But I would not put both of them. Why? Because we're running into a situation where the profile of this cap here, when you go down, is causing there to be a greater gap on one end, on the top than it is on the bottom, and then on the top side it would be opposite. It's just the profile of it. So make sure before you fasten it 100%, make sure your pickets are plumb, and make sure your post is plumb. Okay? If you have to cut, do whatever cuts you have to make. And the longer the stairwell, if you install it like that, tight all the way, what will end up happening is each time that you install, your post is going to go like a clock. And by the time you get off at the bottom, you're going to be close to half inch or more off. So just keep everything plumb as you're installing and going down. All right, so you're going to cut off the tops of the posts. Our cutoff height from the top of the rail. And what you want to do is you want to get your height from here, not from the next rail down, okay? You want to get it from the bottom of the section. You're going to measure up 1.5 inches, and you're going to mark it, okay? And then you're going to cut it. 1.5 inches. Remember that measurement? That's what we're looking for. Is that what we said? 1.5 inches, right? I'm trying to adjust, guys, because we've been, we're trying to standardize this way. We've been doing things different, you know what I mean? We're trying to standardize. So 1.5 inches in top, you're going to mark all your posts and cut them. That way they'll all be uniform. Wipe down all rails. If you're at a job site, they're still doing drywalling. There's drywall dust everywhere, and they absolutely are wanting us there. You do your job. Just think about it. You don't spend a whole bunch of time wiping and touching them, cleaning down if you know it's going to get absolutely trashed. But if you are one of the last contractors there, everything you see on the job site is absolutely clean and immaculate, swept up, beautiful. They're in the middle cleaning up the units and everything. Clean the rails up. Clean the rails up, touch up. A lot of times, if there's one person standing around, guess what his job is? As you guys are installing the rails, have him touch up. If you got one guy standing around, you're just pretty much taking your money and just throwing it right in the air. Because that's what that person's doing. If they don't have their hands on tools or on something, they're not being productive. We should all be keeping busy at all times. My biggest pet peeve is do not have your hands working around me in their pockets. Because you won't be working with me that long. You will not be working with me that long. We should always be busy. There's always something to do, no matter what. You're going to put on all your nut covers on the sides of the posts, just like so. Okay? Do not put them on the insides of the stringer, because as people go down, you're going to get somebody with a pair of sneaks that likes to just kick stuff or whatever, and just going to kick the nut cover right off, pop somebody in the head with it. Don't worry about doing that.
Before you move too far away from the stairwell, you might want to mention about the spindle screws, making sure they're all facing the same way.
Inside out. That's what you want.
Oh, he's right here.
Yeah, just because it's a common mistake.
Good point. Good point. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. The screws on each of these pickets, spindles, whatever you want to call them, these screws should be on the outside of the stairwell at all times. Why? Because you got one side that doesn't have them, and you have one side that does. Most customers do not want to see screws, okay? They don't want to see screws. They want to see the finish side. So make sure that you install these as you're going down the stairs. This is what you should be facing, okay? Out the other side, good point. We'll have to make sure we incorporate that. See, that's thing mother class, man. We all learn. I like that. Okay? If you guys have questions as we're going through this, things that you've run across in the job site, make sure that you write them down, or, you know, just most of the time, the only way that we are all going to learn is, like I said before in the beginning, by speaking up. If we come across situations that we need answers to, please speak up. Let us know. Give us feedback. Guys that have installed the 200 series rail, anything that perhaps, you know, can help us improve on time of installation, or even just plain installation period. Anything that might be a safety risk. Just keep in mind that humans designed this. We're not perfect by any means, okay? So, but we are trying to do our best to give our customers the best product possible. But give us feedback, okay? And the only way that you will learn the answers of what the company is expecting of you is also to speak up and to speak out. All right, 200 series requirements and codes. Codes and requirements. Residential height, does anybody know?
36.
36 inches. 36 inches, good job. 36 inches residential height. Most of the time when you're going to these houses, you know, every once in a while, if you get beyond a certain height, you will find on some houses that they have 42-inch railings, and they are requiring you to have a 36-inch handrail. Those cases are different, and you'll come across that. But the requirements for the residential in most cases are 36 residential height for guard rail. For guard rail, okay? Remember that. Anything that's above 30 inches from grade has to have guardrails on it, and it has to be 36 inches high, okay? Commercial height, what is that? 42 inches. Most of the time when we're installing, we like to say ½ inch to an inch if possible. Above, from the top. You still have requirements that you have to meet, okay? And we'll discuss that as we go. You're going to have requirements that you need to meet on the bottom as well. One of the things that we found out is, with the way that the rail was designed and the common measurement that we had on our tickets, on an open stairwell, they were not going to work. Because when we achieved our height, you had too much of a gap down here. Now in a closed stairwell, it works out fine. So what we had to do was increase the size of the picket. Gave it a taller picket, that way we can tighten that bottom down. And what that is I think that's what we're talking about here. Yeah, distance between the bottom of the rail and the tread. You got to make sure that you keep this low enough to where it rejects a 6-inch veer. For years, our rule was 7 inches. Does that still apply? Or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Could be less than 7. 7 or less.
7 or less. 7 inches or less from this nose right here. And a lot of, most of the time, no matter what your tread and your rise is, because there is a certain requirement that the treads have to be and the rise has to be per code, most of the time 7 inches will work. 7 inches will work, or lower. So like I said, we had to increase the height of the picket. In those circumstances, if you guys ever get to a job site and you see that, please let us know. to where that's, you know, but most of the time, here lately with the 200 series, this is what we've been installing on. Now on residential, we have not been running into those situations too much to where they have been stressing this 6-inch sphere. Why? Because most of the time you just have a few steps going up and down. Now if you're at the beach or something like that, a lot of times it has its own different code, different monster, okay? It gets a little tricky. So in all cases, just to be on the safe side, try to observe those rules. Try to observe that 7-inch or lower rule to reject that 6-inch sphere, and that's to the bottom of the rail, okay? You want to keep your 42-inch height or 36-inch height, whatever you're at. Distance between the pickets. Does anybody know the code that it cannot exceed 4 inches? Cannot exceed 4 inches, no matter where you are in the rail. Okay? I had, there was a situation in Ocean City a few years back that a small child, because the older code, I believe, allowed 6 inches. Well, a small child crawled out into a third-story balcony and fell. Did not make it. Okay? Code is very important. What we do, okay, is save somebody's life. We can save people's lives with what we do, okay? If you install a rail and that rail fails, you are not only putting us in jeopardy, but also if somebody falls and dies, you just kill somebody. All because of negligence, okay? Our jobs are incredibly important. And it's important that we do it to the best of our ability and to what we are given and with what we know, with the knowledge that we know. Okay? Mount post to a wooden stairwell with an open back or stringer. What size bolt? 3/8. 3/8 lag, 3/8 bolts. Okay? Remember that. 3/8 through bolt with washer. Now, when we are putting those when it is making contact with our railing, make sure that you guys put a plastic washer on the bolts as well. Make sure. We do that because of contact and the chemical reaction. We're trying to avoid the chemical reaction. Not only that, but over time it wears down on the pane and just kind of destroys the post. So you don't have to have it on the wood side, the plastic, just on anything that makes contact with the aluminum. Now, where the aluminum is covered, obviously we're not worried about that, okay? We're not worried about that because there's no paint or anything on there. But whenever it's on the side, when it's not on the side like this one here, we're gonna have plastic washers on it. And you should be supplied with that. If not, please, Mark, in your case, you know, call a shop or whatever, or if you need to get a bag and have some, you know, for your guys or whatever, so just in case they forget, you'll have it. But our guys, make sure you have plastic washers.
You also want regular nuts on there or lock nuts?
Good point. Lock nuts. Whenever doing the stairwells, use nylon lock nuts, 3/8 nylon lock nuts. There has been cases where we use your standard nut. What you can do is until you figure out where, like if it's real bad, you're selling to a stringer that's really, really bad, and you know you're going to be going in and out and adjusting, and then you have to cut off and all that. You can use a regular nut until you figure it out and then put the lock nut on there. Because if you try to use your lock nut and adjust it, you're going to lock the nut and then you're going to have to break the bolt off in order to undo the nut. Okay? And you will learn that probably one time and you probably won't do it again. If you want to learn it again, then you can do it again, you know, but I don't think your boss is going to be happy with it.
Are you in any regular situations where you're just using a regular nut? Is it going to a standard lock nut all the time now?
That's what we're going to for standard.
So
that's what we're going
don't
to.
want to see regular nuts in the bag.
We don't want to see regular nuts in the back. Everybody hear that?
No regular nuts in the bag.
No regular nuts. Okay?
That's just on the staircase.
Yeah.
That's why I said for this. That's why I said for this.
Any rail guys that we're using a bolt, we're gonna be lock nuts, Tom. If the side mount rails, you're gonna use lock nuts. If you're gonna use side mount stairs, they're gonna be lock nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we've come across any jobs that we've had lock washers, have we? I don't know if,
No.
okay. So as a standard, guys,
Lock
just-
nuts or Loctite is preferred. We never want to go back to service a rail where a bolt comes.
okay.
That's our goal.
We had hot flashes.
Did you? Okay. Well, fair enough. Everybody up to speed on that? Okay. Lock nuts. Forget about a nut. Nobody wants to be with a nut. All right, 36-inch residential height, commercial height, 42 inches. Good. Distance between the bottom of the rail and tread, it has to reject a what? 6-inch sphere. Good. Distance between the pickets, it cannot exceed what? 4 inches. All right, cool. You guys are learning. I'm doing something good. Distance from the edge of mounting surface to the base plate is what? 3/8. On wood and on concrete, it's 2 3/8. 2 3/8. American Disability Act. Is that going to be on the test? Okay. It's not going to be on the test. But it's good to know, guys, just in case you're asked by a super, it makes you seem smart, like you know what you're doing and what you're talking about. So, ADA. Most of the time, the term ADA the whole Disability Act, it is anything to do with individuals that are handicapped. Okay? Most of the time, your ramps and stuff like that, they are required to meet ADA code. It is its own monster to deal with. Okay? They have a very similar to the code book, but has its own requirements as well, additional requirements that it's good to know. A lot of times I get people asking me 1,000 questions about rails. The first thing that I try to tell them to do is to go look online. Okay, if you're working in a certain area, look up the code for that place or the code book. Look up the code book, okay, for the one that's current. I think, are they using 06 or is it newer now? Or
2012 is the newest code book.
okay,
Most people adopted at least 09, and a lot of them have moved to 2012.
okay, and I imagine it has its own changes and everything. So we got to keep up with what code is, and it's good for you to know. Go on there. I'm not telling you to read the whole entire code book, but there is a section specific on guardrails and handrails that is very good for you to be familiar with. It does tell you, it explains to you a lot. It explains to you the whole concept of the internal handrail and what the purpose of it is. Most of the time, the internal handrail is there to be continuous to guide anybody that is disabled, anybody that has problems to see or anything, has problem with vision. It will guide them to the exit of the building in a case of a fire. So that is why they have it to be continuous. That is why they want you to have it as least obtrusive as possible when you're going down from fingers and everything to hit it. They want it as clear as possible. They have certain codes you have to meet with the hand. It's crazy. But it has to be continuous. And down at the ends, if you guys have installed our rails, most of the time there's hoops or there's something that levels out. It's to guide them out of the building. I didn't know that until I read the code book. So there is good things on there that you guys, can learn from. And like I said, these classes are for the most part, going to be a basic knowledge of the rail, but you will learn more if you dig for it. You will learn more. Internal handrails typically attached to some types of railing systems such as AAP 100 and 200 series. We have done internal handrails to walls. Okay, there's some jobs where they will have a wall there for you to mount on, an inside wall, and you will be mounting rails. So in some cases that will change, but in most cases, most applications, you will have guardrails to mount your handrail to. External handrail, the same applies. You'll be typically attaching directly to the wall opposite to the railing system to the internal handrail. Internal handrail. Odds are, if you have external handrail, you will have internal handrail. I've not gone to many jobs to where you have one without the other. Most of the time, especially in commercial buildings, you will have both sets. The number one thing that you need to do is read your work order. Read your work order. Everything else is the same. Keep going. Prepare installation site. The same applies. All right, installation. Installation. From the nose of the step, you're going to mark 33¼ okay, from the leading edge again. You're going to use your pickets, okay, whichever one is closest to a picket, you're going to measure up 33¼ and you're going to mark your picket, okay? A lot of times on our 4-foot levels, we'll take a square, measure 33¼ you put it on the level. That way you don't have to continue to go like this with your tape every single time. Unless you just like that, you know. Put it on your level, mark it, and you'll have it already. Put it on there, read your level, boom, it's done. Okay? Mark the rail. You're going to mark your top, and you're going to mark your bottom. And you're going to strike a line through there. You're going to do that from the top of the stairwell all the way to the bottom. Then you're going to install your center bracket, or brackets if you have multiple center posts. Okay? The more, if you have 3 center posts, it's a lot easier to install the brackets ahead of time and not to try to have to juggle the rail or anything like that, you know, trying to get, but you can actually lay the rail on there and it makes it so much easier. So install your center brackets, okay? Install your center brackets. Attach handrail brackets using a 4-inch splice. In the middles, when you are attaching the rails, you're going to use a 4-inch splice. On the ends here, you're going to be using a smaller 2-inch splice. You don't have to. Now, in certain applications, if you have a big opening, okay, right there, a big crotch, then we're going to go ahead and put the 4-inch because it's stronger, okay? But in most applications where you have 9 inches or below, just go ahead and use that 2-inch. It's just a lot easier, okay? A lot less to handle. And some of you guys that have used some of those stubborn splices, you're kind of thankful for that too. I know I am. When you are setting your handrails, okay, you're going to set your handrails, and Scott will demonstrate a lot more hands-on. It's a lot easier to understand this when you see it. But you're going to use your bends, and he's going to describe to you on the bender how many pumps, okay, on the handrail bender, how many pumps will give you, you know, what the distance is. It'll give you a 1/4 inch, 5/16, all depending on your bender. He's going to go over a lot of this stuff with you. I'm trying to just generally cover it. But you're going to work your way from the top to the bottom post, surface mount, measure up from landing 36 inches. Once you're installing your pipe and you get all the way down here, bending and making sure you're keeping your 36-inch profile, okay, all the way down, you're going to have on the bottom, when you're installing your hoops, you're going to have somebody down here with either your level, okay, you can have a 36-inch mark on your level, or you can have somebody with a tape to the top of your pipe when they're going down with the hoop, and he's going to demonstrate this so you can get a better visual. You're going to have the top of your level has to be at 36 inches, okay? I've heard stories that some of the guys have gone to job sites and they've seen those level sections in the bottom at 40 inches. That's not good, okay? Can you imagine starting right here, trying to go up the stairs, you know, looking like you're carrying a purse, okay? Guys don't carry purses. All right, 36 inches, guys. 36 inches. And then sit transition 36 inches on the stairs to keep it as uniform as possible going up. Bend until correct height. Cut pipes to length. Make all bends before you make your cuts. Okay, there again, a lot of this stuff, once you get the visual demonstrations, you'll learn a lot more. I can explain it to you, but you'll just get bored and yawn. At the top of the next rail, install the proper bracket. Use a 2-inch splice, just like we talked about, for the transition on the landing. Repeat installation steps until you reach the bottom of the stairs. You start at the top. Most of the time, your top pipe will have a bend already in it, okay? There will be times where, all depending where this post is, if this post is here, mounted there, you will not have a bend in it. You will have to put the bend yourself, okay? Because there is no break right there that we can bend with what we have here at Atlantic Aluminum. You will have to make the bend, and your bend is going to be here. It's going to bend down. You're going to make the 36 inches to return this way. You're going to go down everything that it said. You're going to follow the steps there till you get down here. You're going to bend that down to 36. You're going to mark up from this point here, this level landing. You're going to mark up 36. You're going to bend that pipe. Remember, all depends on where this post is, okay? If this post is up here, guess what? That's going to change a little bit. That's going to change. It's going to be, you have between 34 to 38 inches that you have got to keep the handrail height. 36 is what we want you to mount all the pipe to, but if this post here is a little bit further to the leading edge of the step, guess what? You don't have, your bender is going to end up, if you try to reach 36, your pipe's going to look like a sandwich. By the time it's all said and done, it's going to flatten it out, okay? So you're going to have to make a mark at about 37 and a half. We want to try to stay away from 38 as much as possible, but you're going to make a mark at 37 and a half and put it up there. But for right now, this application, and because it's a basic, simulation, just 36 inches, you're going to bend your pipe to meet, the top of your pipe is going to be 36 inches, and then you're going to follow the same steps as you go down this way, okay? Reveal is everything on these steps. You should be able to stand back and look at the handrails, and your handrails, the reveal on the top should be the same consistently throughout. If you have a greater gap up here than you do down the bottom, that should be your first telltale sign something's wrong, okay? Odds are, most of the time, when you have a helper, an installer, or somebody that is not too familiar with it, installing ahead of time, even though that you've told them what to do, make sure you follow after them. It's happened to me countless times. Make sure you follow after them and make sure that they're doing the job right, especially if you're doing something that's 7 stories high. If you let them go and they're installing at the wrong height, it's going to be a miserable long day. Okay, follow after them. Make sure that they're doing their job right so that you can do yours the right way as well. Okay? Final piece at the bottom of the stairs. Just like I said, you're gonna hold it up. It's going to be a hoop or something like that. You're going to hold up your tape. You're going to slide the rail down until your top reaches 36 inches. You're going to mark the pipe right here in the center. Cut. Put it on. Installation, internal handrail, you're going to measure up 36 inches. For bracket, measure up 30 1/4. This is the external, okay? This is the external.
Eli, I made a mistake, that's supposed to be 3/4, 1/4.
3 what?
3/4, 30 and 3/4.
30 and 3/4, okay. Is the 3/4 on the test?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Guys, remember, 3/4, make pretend that one is a 3. You're going to measure up 30 and 3/4 on the external handrail. 30 and 3/4. We had a question. How come you guys don't go to the top of the handrail or the top of the bracket? Well, because the measurements are still different. The measurements are a 1/4 inch difference. So it's still a different measurement. The way Scott does it is at 30 and 3/4. And the more I thought about it, having those two drastic number differences is a lot easier to remember than the 1/4 inch difference. But sometimes, people will forget. They'll get confused because they're so close together. So 30 and 3/4 to the bottom of the handrail bracket. When this pipe is down here and it's laying down, okay, you're going to take your level. You're going to go to the very top here. You're going to hold your level at the very front of the pipe, okay? You're gonna measure up 36 inches where you have your 36-inch mark on your level. And then you're gonna make a mark down. That is going to be your leading edge of your handrail, okay? After you mount these brackets, the handrail's laying down, you're gonna eyeball and see your section that its level is just about right there, like that, 10 inches or so. You should be able to eyeball that, or you can even take your tape measure and measure back the center if you want to be super technical, and then you can also measure from here back, from that mark. That way you'll find your center down there, or measure, or find your center there, and then down the bottom, you know, you should be able to eyeball it and put it as close to center as possible. Mount your brackets ahead of time, put your pipe on top here, slide it over until you get your mark, and then fasten the pipe on, okay? Follow that same routine all the way down. Follow that same routine all the way down. You should be good to go. You're going to use 2-inch screw to fasten brackets to wall. So that all depending on where you are, that might change. All depends on where you are and what you're mounting to. Obviously, if you're mounting to concrete, it's going to be different. If you're mounting to concrete, you're going to use large hole brackets and you're going to use 3/8 anchors. But in this application, drywall, siding, anything like that, and all depending on the siding, you might have to use backers. On your siding, you might have to pull the siding out, put backers behind it. You might have to do that. If you are installing to shiplap siding where it's extremely difficult, or you have a Carolina bead, it's difficult to take it out, odds are you're not going to be pulling the siding out and putting backers behind the siding. You might have to try to fabricate something to put backers behind your brackets to hold it out enough. And all depending on what you have to do is the size screw that you have to use. Just common sense. Okay? Common sense. But 2-inch, for this application, 2-inch screws is what we're going to fasten to the wall. Equally spaced midsection brackets, no more than 54 inches apart. Alright? You don't want to have too much of a span. Why? What's that going to do to your pipe if you have too long of a span, guys? Anybody? Everybody bounce. You're going to go down the stairs, you're going to be bouncing, people are going to think you're dancing or something. 54 inches. 54 inches. Back to codes and requirements. The minimum height requirement is 34. Maximum height requirement for handrail? 38. Good. What is the required distance between the wall and handrail according to the life safety code? 2 3/8. 2 1/4, I'm sorry. Good. 2 1/4. 2 3/8 is what we have. Why? Because bigger is always better. So our distance for our handrail brackets, when you put the pipe on, 2 3/8. That's why I got that in my mind. But the code is 2 1/4. 2 1/4. Did you have a question, Mark? No. Okay. When the handrail levels out at the bottom, how long does the level section have to be when it levels out? 12 inches. So what that means is, when you take your tape and you're stretching it all the way down and it touches in the bottom, at that point right there, it should level out 12 inches. And that is 12 inches of graspable rail. If you guys look at this handrail, from this bend to here, where it's able to be grasped on, it should 12 inches where it levels out. Does everybody see that? From that bend there to there, okay? Not to here, to this end, but to here. 12 inches.
All right, for all you that don't know me or haven't met me, my name's Scott Eastman. I've been here quite a long time, probably like almost 8 years now. Have my hands on just about everything in the company. got a lot of experience with all of it. And I'd just like to start off by saying, the first thing you do, we're going to go over this, it's going to seem repetitive, but you need to pay attention to your work order, read it over completely, understand what you have, what you're doing, what you're working with, and stage your material accordingly. It makes it easier to organize. To stay organized is to be efficient. Like I said, stage your material, your rails, your handrails, your posts, stair rail, level rail. First thing I want to demonstrate is putting the rail together. It's pretty basic. Everything for your 200 series rails, all your posts are routed. You have corner posts, line posts, has holes on both sides, end posts have holes only on one side. They should all come with the rods already in them. Pay attention to your rods. One end is cut, flush, the other end should be tapered. The taper end always goes down. Fit your rails. Check your rods, make sure they slide in and out easily. If you get a little burr or something in them, they will hang the rail up, or the post, the rod in the post, and it'll get jammed. You don't want to try to beat it in unless you absolutely have to. We have all these 2x2 blocking, 2x2 spline posts that we're going to use for our toe kicks. So at the end, everybody can grab some to keep your toe kick. It stays consistent. You don't have to cut any blocking for it. If you use that, you keep that on the truck, you always have it. One of the things that I've run across in doing level rails, putting them together, is this rail does not have a center foot picket. And sometimes it makes it a little difficult to putting them together. What it does is when you slide it together, it's down on this angle. And it makes it hard to line this post up and to fit it. Okay? If you just set it up on a piece of material, a piece of 1x or your 2x2, it makes it easier to go together. So if you don't have a picket foot, if you have a picket foot, it kind of levels itself out, so it makes it easier to slide together.
And picket foot is for what, typically?
For a span, a longer span. 5
and bigger?
Yeah, I'd say over 5 foot. They usually have the picket feet in the center picket. All right. Sometimes when we're putting this rail together, these holes do not line up exactly right. And you can take and adjust this bottom piece, pulling it in or out using a hammer, to try to slide this so your rod will slide in and down. If you're having a problem with your hole alignments, sometimes these machines and the punches that they have inside are not exactly center of the rail. And you're having a problem getting your rail started or your rod started in the rail, use a 1/4-inch drill bit, preferably a long one, 6-inch or 8-inch, and position your rail in the post where your holes are almost, exactly where you need them lined up, and then pre-drill it. Okay? And then that'll help your alignment of your holes. Only when you can't get it in and you've messed with it and fooled with it to try to align the holes up so your rod will slide in nice and easy. Take a 1/4-inch drill bit and pre-drill it.
If that problem is persistent, please alert the shop so we can make sure we're not on a trend of a problem. So
Right.
If it's a once in a while, it's no big deal, but if it's consistent, please let someone know.
It's been pretty good. You're going to run into it every now and then where something just got a little out of whack. Okay. Another thing that I found out about these corner posts is when we're putting the corner posts together and you have your straight rail, your level rail going into the rail, and you go to put the other side of the corner together, these edges tend to hit, the other rail that's already installed. What you need to do is to slide the rail all the way into the post until this touches the other rail. The top cap's gonna touch. That's all it is. The edges of this top cap's gonna touch. Okay, slide it all the way in. What it's doing, it hits and it's preventing you to slide your rod down into the hole. So all you have to do is slide it all the way in. Take a pencil and mark right along the rail and the post. Okay, and pull the rail back out, and then take your battery saw, skill saw, and just cut like a 45-degree cut on the edge of the rail. And that'll give you that clearance you need so you can slide it in further so your rod will go in properly.
That's only on the top cap.
Only on this top cap. You don't want to come outside of that line because you know that cut will be exposed. That's why you put that line on there.
And it's only on one, not both.
Yeah, only on one rail.
Or if you have a grinder.
You can use a grinder too, but just make sure you don't come outside of that line. You know, that way that cut edge is inside the post and you don't see it. Okay, it's pretty basic. It doesn't happen all the time, but when you do several corners, you will run into that situation. Okay. Making sure you get all your rail put together, lined up, keeping your reveal 3/8 of an inch off the edge. You can take and run a chalk line, and chalk lines if you have a real long run, say 20 or 30 feet. You want to maintain your straightness, so you'll chalk a line. Bolting it down, whether you're doing concrete or wood, you'll bolt it down. Try to make sure when you're bolting it down, you keep this post straight. They tend to twist a little bit. Just make sure you're keeping them straight on your line. And it makes it reveal, when you're putting your base plates on, base covers. It just keeps them all nice and straight. They do tend to turn a little bit because if you don't keep them centered, they tend to twist when we put them in. So if you have that problem, put one side in and put one on the other side to hold the post square. So say square to your deck or your line that you have chalked. What we'll do is we'll install all our rail all the way around, make sure the rail fits tight and it's at the right lengths. When we get to this top level rail here, we need to start by installing the stair rail first. We can't do the top level until we actually get this top level post set. So being whether you got wood or you have your concrete, you have to set the post accordingly. Whether it's 3/8 of an inch off the edge or you're 2 3/8 off the edge, being if it was concrete. You want to make sure that this post is aligned with the side stringer. Your edge of your post, the inside edge of your post is aligned with your stringer, whether it's trimmed or if it's an open stair. This is called a closed stair because it has a skirt board on it. Those are open stairs because they don't have a skirt board on it, but you still have to maintain your post in the correct alignment, keeping it back at the right spot, whether you got wood or concrete. Okay. While you're, what I usually do is I have my guys staging the material, and if I know I got 200 series stairs, I have one person assembling these cuffs, or I have them already assembled. If they're already, if you have them already together, this is good. These cuffs, I don't know if all of you have seen these cuffs or not. Pretty self-explanatory. It takes a 5/16 screw, special screw they use to put these together. It's real simple. You got your cuff. This cuff here, it has the ball joint. Works on both top and the bottom. Put it together using your screw. When you put these together, you want to make sure they're tight, because if you don't tighten them up, they will rattle, and it changes the adjustment of your rail. So just enough so where it doesn't rattle. You can still manipulate it and move it. okay, because see, it doesn't rattle. Okay, but you can still, if you get it too tight, you ain't gonna be able to adjust it. All right, when you're putting these on these rails, there's two things you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of the picket space that's on the router hole that's on the base of the pickets. This cuff, the bottom cuffs mainly, has a solid side and a groove side for your picket. If you sit your cuff on here and this cuff goes past the router hole of the picket slot, you have to turn it around and use the slot side up. That way there, when you're putting this rail on, that rail will slide into that routed out hole, that slot, so it doesn't bind the picket. Okay, so the easiest way to look for that is if you put your cuff on this rail and it's sticking past, it's kind of hard to see, but if it's sticking past the edge of that hole, you know you have to turn this cuff over and use the slot side up, because when you go to set your rail, it binds.
You wouldn't want to just turn them all up like that all the time?
No.
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 Anyways.
I mean, it's a nicer profile when you see it like that, you know. You're going to have different lengths of rails. You just got to adjust it accordingly. If you do not do that and you find that all the guys that I've worked with, we run into this situation, you don't always catch it. And it will bow this picket. So then you got 3.5 here and 4 inches, it'll bow it because it's binding on this cuff. So just try to be aware of that. If you make one way, make sure they match so they all look the same. Okay.
It's kind of hard to do.
Yeah. Real simple to put these on. Just make sure they stay flush and tight. The one thing I always try to tell my guys is to put them on with the rail standing up just like this and tighten them on, making sure they're sat down all the way onto the rail.
Do you ever put cuffs on without the side screws before it's mounted to the post?
No. Not unless, the only time that I would slide them on is if I know I'm consistently having problems with my reveal. The reveal that I'm going to be talking about is the reveal of between the pickets here. You'll have 3 3/8 at the top, and you might have 3 1/4 or 3 3/4 at the bottom. So you'll have to make that adjustment either by trimming the rail or adjusting the cuff. So then I wouldn't tighten it up. That's going to have to be something that I show you on a demonstration. Okay, get all your cuffs on your rail, top and bottom. See how this one is loose and rattling? It'll show up when you go to put it in. So just make sure they're tight. Okay. Try not to let your rail bind. If you got your rail stood up, the one thing that I found out the hard way down in North Carolina is that we were putting these cuffs on and we was letting the rail go and it would slam down and bind. What it does is it busts this screw right here.
Picket screw.
The picket screw. It on the ends. It's because this binds down and it bends that screw and it breaks it loose, and once it's bent it strips and it's no good. So try to make sure you keep the rail upright and don't let it bind down on itself, because it will break that screw. All right. I'm going to get Jim and Dave up here to help me do these demonstrations. Since they have a little bit, I got one that's got experience and one that really doesn't. So I'm going to kind of go over what we're going to do, a little bit of steps at a time, so everybody can visually see what we're doing and understand why we're doing it. And no screws on the other side. The stairway side of the rail is the common side of the rail. Make sure your screws are always facing out. The screws are on the outside, they're going to go to the outside. Okay? What I would have my helper and I do is we'll position this rail, basically just holding it right there, kind of holding this side too. and we'll check our measurement from the nose of the step at the top to see what kind of height we got. Okay, we're going to set our rail at 42 inches or higher. Okay, once we establish where our height needs to be, you can either take a pencil mark the top, or the top cuff or the bottom cuff, and attach it to this post. Jim, go ahead and attach this one right there.
You ever had problems, Scott, there when the bottom screws you're putting in that swivel cup hit the screws that come up through the bottom of the base plate?
Yeah.
As that way you go favor a little bit higher too, so you don't have a problem?
Yes. Once in a while you will run into the screw that is attaching the plate into the post, but I found if you go if you go down tight to this trim ring, you usually don't hit it. If you do, you have to pre-drill it. You have to kind of pre-drill it on an angle with a 5/32 bit to bypass that screw to thread your tech in there properly. Okay.
Everybody understand what he just said? And why? Screws coming up from the bottom base plate.
The only time I've run into that problem is when we're doing these ones down here at North Carolina. The post sits so far down and there's no trim ring on it. We're attaching, they have a piece of angle on the bottom of it.
Do you tighten these as you go, or do you put them all loose and then come back and tighten them?
Tighten them up, run them in and tighten. The one thing you need to be aware of, these cuffs, they're almost exactly the same size as these posts. You want to make sure you keep that reveal even and straight. They do tend to twist on you when you're putting them in. So, if you find it twisting, you got one screw in, you're going to have to hold it over and put a screw in another hole and then go back and make sure it just stays square. You don't want this hanging off the edge of the post. Keep it as straight and in line as you can. Okay, now that we have our post.
Scott, do you find an extension, the longer the extension, the 6-inch like Jim has, would be better?
So that way you don't have to tilt the rail up and loosen it.
It's personal preference. Sometimes you got to use a long one to get in there to attach your screws because of your skirt boards, whatever. You got to know what you need to work with. It's a taste
Where are the long drivers available from?
Where?
Fastenal has them.
Yeah, Fastenal has them for sure. Yeah, but Paul usually has some. If you don't have any, see how that's loose? That's because that screw wasn't tight in that cuff. That's what I was talking about. And that little bit, that makes a difference. So we need to tighten that up. We'll let her go for right now. Okay. Now we maintain our measurement at 42 inches. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take this post right here. Okay. And I always put my caps on my post first. This post here, I've trimmed the edge of the cap off so it fits flush to the stair, so we don't have to shim it as much. But a lot of times all we do is we'll just put the regular cap on it and we'll hold this post, like so, and we'll determine our height. What we're going to do here is, Jim, you're going to hold this post. Yep. He's going to hold this post so this cap, hold this rail. He's going to hold this post so this cap is about a ½ inch from the bottom or so, just so it's not sticking below the skirt. Reveal right here between the bottom of the rail and the skirt board is even. Okay? Once he does that, he's got it lined up where we need it. Can you see that? I can't see the holes yet. No. You check that reveal.
The real looks good, yeah.
Okay.
Come down a little bit.
I'm going to try to get it as close, as accurate as you can.
Right.
Then you'll take your pencil and mark the top of the cuff on the bottom. At the same time, he's going to determine where he needs to pre-drill his holes. He's got one underneath the stringer that he's got to drill and one above the stringer or above the tread. You want to make sure that you eyeball this real good. You don't want to be drilling into the tread and you don't want to be drilling into the riser. You want to always look and see what kind of material you have under here. Sometimes material in the way underneath the tread. So just be aware of what you're drilling into. And we've pre-marked our holes and drilled them already. All right. The main thing, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to keep our reveal straight, even as we can. And we want this rail and post positioned exactly where we're going to mount it. So you're going to hold that up. Twist this a little bit.
Hey, what did you do to get your first starting bracket on that top post? I know you already had holes drilled and you just snapped it in there. And now you're saying follow that reveal, but where did you start with on that?
What I did was I took this rail and I kind of held it in that position to where my reveal is the same. And then measured from the nose of the step up to the top of the rail. Not the cuff, but the top of the rail. And to see where I was at as far as my height. Okay, if I set this all the way down on that trim, I still would have been 42 inches. But I've raised it up a 1/4 inch, so I'm at like 42 1/4. So I know I'm above my reveal. Trim board on the side of the stringer. And you just got regular, the salt treated 1x. I would take a board and screw to the stringer to help keep it on that reveal, and I can set my rail right down on it, determining, trying to see if my height matches. Just helps you stabilize the rail. So yeah, that's a determination you have to make if you want to do that or not. But usually you can just hold it up here and eyeball it. Now you guys can do this either way you want. You can hold it down here or up here, but I try to hold my rail out here level, holding it on my pencil mark, so we can screw it nice and easy. Getting straight on it and screwing it is a lot easier than trying to screw it on an angle. So I hold it up and attach it. Take it down a little. Okay. Where you at? All right. Just make sure you keep this cuff straight and square. Don't strip them out. Be careful when you're putting these techs in, because they will snap off on you. You go to tighten them with a fresh battery and they lock right in and they'll snap the head of that screw off. So then you got back tech. You got to take it all back apart, get you a pair of vice grips and back out the broken stud. Right, Jim?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially the explain.
Okay. You want to attach the bottom, and then the top will attach right where it lands. You just got to adjust the cuff accordingly. Okay, attach that right there. Hold on. Loosen that up a little bit. So he's tightening it up where the cuff isn't aligned right. It's twisted, so we have to loosen it up and push the top over and then attach it. Our bolts. These have already been done. So we'll line them up, shove the bolts through.
Inside out? Outside?
Yeah, that way there it's less profile, it doesn't stick out, it doesn't catch on your foot or your shoe or anything. If you got the nut cover and the bolt out on this side, it protrudes out a little bit further. Okay? But on the, you can put them both the same way. Is it the same one? Probably not. What I usually do on the bottoms is, because you can keep your nut covers on a little bit better. You can put it through this way with your bolt head out, but it makes it a little bit easier if you put it through from the inside. Yeah, put it through. That way there you can adjust your nut. You can see your nut and work with it, because if you got to shim it and adjust the post, you're not up underneath of it. Sometimes always put them between the washer and your painted material, so it doesn't scar the material. It causes a corrosion between them, especially down by the beach or any area by the water. It's worse. All right, once you snug up your post, you want to check two things. You want to check and make sure it's level this way and in and out. Okay? You can do that now as you go. If you know the stairways are pretty straight, The most critical part is level in and out this way, front to back. Side to side, you can straighten them out. As if you get down here, as Eli showed you, you can eyeball your posts. A lot of these stringers go in and out. Just want to make sure it maintains a straight profile. Okay.
Scott, on the entrance of that one there, to get all the way to that point and find out that post isn't plumb is like a step back. I don't know, a lot of times.
You gotta hold your post up here and check it to make sure it's plumb before you do any marking or cutting.
It might work for the field, it might not. Is to slip those cuffs on the end of that rail loose, put the post against it first, and check it with a level and see if it's plumb before you go ahead and screw everything down.
I'll hold it up there and check it.
Right.
You know, I'll hold a level on it and plumb it and make sure it's right. Then I'll check and adjust my reveal. What you have to look for here after you get this thing attached is this dimension right here. What we've been having a problem with the bottoms being one measurement and the tops being another. So what you would do, you would just loosen this screw and adjust the rail. Hopefully it didn't push the post out of level too bad. Or you can take and trim the rail to fit, you know, to make this, because it's been about a 3/16 to a 1/4 inch difference sometimes. And the further down you go, the more it adds to it. So you have to make the adjustment, either trimming the rail or loosen the screw up and adjusting the cuff in and out. First thing you got to do is check the rail, the way the rail goes. Okay, the screws on the side of the rail always go out. Okay, check your cuffs, make sure they're tight. But we're going to line this rail up, adjusting the cuffs so they fit to the post the proper way. Okay. And we're going to adjust our rail to fit our profile. So what you have to do is you have to adjust this to make sure your profile is following the same angle. Okay, see what we did? Just moving the rail up and down, making sure it's tight. You got to take in mind that remember, this post is not going to be there. Okay, so you're just holding the rail up here and making your reveal, following your reveal the same, and attaching it to the post. So you want to attach the top side of the post first. Okay. To hold it so I know where it's at, and then I'll position the rail to keep my reveal right, and just check myself, making sure this reveal is right and the rail is running on the right angle. Once I got that, I'll take this post and do the exact same thing, butt it right up against it, mark my cuff location, and I'll have it up out of the way, and I can attach this cuff to this post. And then, you know, you're already marked for your holes to pre-drill through your step, top and bottom. Attach the rail to the post and put the cuff in, or put the post in. Good, you can do the cuff. If the rail gets in the way, it's easier with the post is held up, so you can screw straight into it. Attach them all.
For that very reason, you would do it level.
Yeah, for that reason right there. You can't. It's pretty good. Like I said, sometimes this reveal is going to be off, so you got to keep an eye on it. All right, so we've attached this post, shim and leveled it both ways. And then we're going to eyeball up to see if we need to make any adjustments to our middle posts as we go up. If you might have 2 or 3 posts, and you'll see that they are off a little bit. Just take and make your adjustments with shims, tightening and loosening the bolts to get it straight, whether you use a string line or eyeball, whatever you prefer to do. Top post, you need to make sure we stay even. Your inside edge is even with the edge of your stringer, and it's attached in the proper position, knowing how what you got. If you got wood or you have concrete, you'll adjust the post to the proper setting. Pass it down. Run this down. I got that block falling out of there. In this case here, we had the two front lags were able to go into the band, and the back block didn't have any blocking in it, and we had to put this one in. These two front, he's got to hold a block up in there.
Does it matter which way that base plate's turned?
Yes, it does. Hold on. Good? Yeah, no, hold on. That's a good point. I forgot to bring that up. These base plates on these posts have a groove. Have a groove in it for the screws, okay? These feet, treat them as just as if we were doing the 100 series bases. They have to provide lateral strength. So your backbone of your bases need to be perpendicular
if we
to
ever
the
get
rail.
an inline post or something like that, and those feet aren't turned for lateral strength out, we need to pull that plate off and spin it.
And spin it. They should
Right.
be.
Once in a blue moon.
Once in a while, they do come out like that.
And of course,
But
for the corner, you can't necessarily get
no,
that
the corner
level.
is going to be what it is.
Right.
Okay? But all your posts should align up to where these feet are perpendicular to the rail. Okay? If you put this post on like this, where your the solid parts of the base are in line with the rail, that causes a weak point right in the center, because it's thinner and it will bend. So that it's like a stiffener. It gives you all the solid strength. So that was a good point to bring up. I'm sure you had too. It's a 3/16 Allen key or Allen key attachment. You want to use a 1/2-inch drill that's got some torque to it, because they do get tight. Now when we're doing these lags on these bases, you don't need one of them synthetic washers on there, because we're going to unpainted material, and it's not going to be seen. It's going to be covered up by the base cover. The only time we're putting those synthetic washers on is when we're attaching to painted surface. All right, is the one going to hit?
Yeah, the inside's gonna hit this one. Here's one I gotta have the
All right,
block.
put the inside in here.
Just drop that one in.
Check go any further. Check it over a little bit, tightness inside of that. Front one. Put your base cover on. You have to put your base covers on before you do these cuffs. You might not be able to get it in there. You can sometimes you can't. Okay. When I'm doing my base covers, I try to put that seam under the rail when we're doing our level rail, so you don't see it. Corners, you can't avoid it. Stairways, you try to put it under the rail if you can. Sometimes you can't. We had to trim this base cover to fit this post, so that's the reason why it's on that way. Down tight as I can to these nose of these steps. Hold that up there. Okay. Now this one here, we did one side one way, and one side another way so we can show you what to do and what not to do. Bring this down. Okay. Now we've got this down to the post trim cover as tight as we can, and we're going to hold our rail, you know, to where we're at 42 inches. Okay, not to the cuff but to the rail. You have to make sure that we're right. So we're at about 42 and a half. Okay, and we would attach that. Can you attach that one?
Scott, what happens if the rise of the steps are all uneven? You got to find the highest one, or I mean, if they're within, it could be an inch out.
They should be real close, within a quarter of an inch. There's a quarter inch tolerance in the stairs of the rise.
Right.
If you put the rail all the way down right on the nose, it still meets the height requirement, correct?
Yes, it should, yeah, as long as we have the,
It goes down to that cuff or that base plate cover.
right, it's only going to go down to that base cover.
But right there, you already have, from here to the top of the rail, you got about 1.5 inches.
Right, but I'll get ready to show you. Let's attach this. Can you adjust that cuff in? Oh, that's why I got screws everywhere. And what we'll do is just lift it up so you can access these screws. It's a lot easier that way. If you try to put it in on this angle here, your drill's binding on the rail, it's scarring the rail up and all that good stuff. You see it? Below the bottom of the step stringer, adjust your cuffs. Now you don't have a it's not adjusted. Okay. Oh, is she tight? I'm going back and forth. Things you can take your measurements off your nose of your steps here and say we're at like 42 and a half, and we're going to set the rail down here at 42 and a half.
Bring it down.
Now it's got to go up a little bit. Up. Okay. So we'll make sure that our rail, we were adjusting the rail height, not the post. He's going to hold the post in the same spot, but we're going to move the rail up to get the same measurement, 42 and a half here, and then we'll put a pencil mark on it and attach it. He's marked the sides of the post to pre-drill it. So we'll pre-drill our post, put the post back in line, take and attach the rail back to the cuff, or attach the rail to the post. And while he's attaching that post, you're going to attach it the same way you did this one. Bolts through, putting your synthetic washer off, leveling it, checking your reveal. This reveal right here again. Okay, we're right dead on 3 inches. Okay. Double check, always double check yourself, checking it with the levels and everything. See, this post is a little bit out. Okay, from the edge. Making sure our screws are to the outside edge. You can use a piece of drywall, something about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick. Place it on the nose of the steps.
There's the longer one over there.
This is
Against the wall. Yeah, that has to come up more.
Yeah, that's got to come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Judge.
Right there.
Yeah, go on, good.
So you can use a piece of a piece of plywood or a piece of drywall or something. Sit on the nose of your steps. Set the rail right down on it, so your reveal is even, consistent, and then you attach the rail. And now it won't go through. We've increased the length of our pickets an inch, slid that back, got this down to like a 1/2 inch clearance of our nose of our steps. That's usually what I do, is about a ½ inch with the post. It's not easy. You need actually, sometimes you need two hands on them to hold it, to keep them square. A clamp, I seen you guys do that, it's an excellent idea. If you take one of the squeeze clamps and put on there and hold this, it'll keep that cuff from twisting. So whatever, you know, you have on hand works, you know. If you don't have one on you, just grab a hold of it, get a couple screws in it, and keep going. But that clamp is a good idea. When you set that, it's still going to be 2 inches. The standard toe kick on all our 200 series is 2 inches, unless Jaws specified it's higher or lower. Okay. Level rail, cuff to cuff, no center picket foot.
Even if it does have the picket foot, the picket feet are set at 1 3/4, so don't rely on the picket feet.
Sometimes you get these decks that are up and down. We got to mount the rail, you know, 2 inches. And it's going to follow the line of the deck, whether it's concrete or wood. It's going to be up and down. We're not
Levels out the door.
going to cut it to
Level
fit
plumb
every
and straight line, the
situation.
same thing.
Right. Every now and then you're going to run into that situation where right in the middle of the rail, this picket foot is a little bit long. Just take your saw, trim it off a little bit so it doesn't hump the rail up. Pay attention to what you're doing. You know, if you know you're sitting in here on this rail and it's rocking back and forth on that picket foot, you know you need to trim it off. So just, you know, you can trim it off after you install it with a Sawzall, or it's easier just to trim a 1/4 inch or so off, whatever you need before you put it in. Okay, so we're going to use those 2x2 blocks there, and your number 3 drive should have it. I'm not number 3 drive, number 12 screws, excuse me, 4 inch. Unless you have material that is preventing the 4 incher going in it. If you run into that situation, you know, sometimes you got wood material blocked out between, over top of concrete. You can only get a 3 inch screw in, then we'll use a 3 inch screw.
Did you pre-drill that bottom hole down there for that cuff in that center?
No. Just give me a minute here. Okay? Put those in. Okay. I tried to use a long driver. Let me see this for a minute. I don't know, these drivers here are very hard to find. Did you happen to find some?
What's that?
These, remember you were asking me about those? Yeah. I mean, you can use those little ones with an extension, a 3 inch extension, but the longer you have, the more you can get away from this rail. When I found that when we're putting these in, and you're right straight on it with a short driver, this drill binds up either on the rail or on the picket, and you end up stripping the head of the screw out. If you strip that screw out, back it out immediately, change it, and put a new one in. But real simple, putting the screw in. Try to maintain as straight as you can on this screw. Keep your bit locked into that so it doesn't strip out. Center height to maintain it straight and level. And we're going to take our measurement from the edge of the deck to either the outside or the inside of the rail. Make it the same down here. Sometimes when you're doing the tops of these stairs, this deck is not square with the stairs, okay? You want to make it comfortable to the eye. Keep your reveals the same, whether you got it cheated in or whatever, just to make it look right. Sometimes I set them in there nice and square, and those things would be 1 inch to 1.5 inches out of square. That's really noticeable. So just keep it so it looks good. And then attach the bottom, you put a level on your rail and level it in and out. If it's too far, if they got this board or something that you're attaching to and it's way out of whack or something, 1/2 inch, try to maintain the reveal to look proper, but you also want to try to keep the rail as level as possible. So you have to use your judgment, whether you're going to level the rail. You can level it and put a mark and hold it up there and see what your reveals look like, or, you know, adjust it accordingly to make it look proper with the rail. Sometimes this trim board isn't mounted on there perfectly level. Okay? Now, you guys have worked on the ones that have center posts only and are cuffed on the ends. If you have a center post, you don't have to put a screw in the bottom. You can, if you do one, you got to do them all. But you do have to put the screw in the top of the rail on the tops, even if you have a center post. Or if you have two posts and you're cuffed to the wall.
Is that because the two layers separate and slide?
Well, actually, it's for the lateral strength. If you push out on it, the top's going to pop out. The bottom, the base is going to basically hold the bottom in. If your top comes out, that rail's failed.
During testing.
For safety, make sure your top.
So you always tech the tops of your rails when you cuff to the wall.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And during testing, that was revealed we had to do
I
that.
don't know how many of them run into it or do it, but they got that little groove in these cuffs. And what I tend to do is my cuff's on there, sitting there. You want to go in on a little bit of an angle. So when you're screwing straight up into this rail, you're hitting that rod that's going through here, holding these pickets in. So you want to kind of go a little bit on the side of it, just so you ain't drilling straight into it. You can drill into it, keep drilling and drilling and drilling, change the tech, put another tech in it, and drill it.
Keep on.
But if you just angle a little bit, it'll go right beside it. Screwing, make sure 100% of the time that you screw, put a tech into the cuff on your top of your rails. The bottoms, if you do not have a center post, they always have to be screwed same exact way.
You know, a situation even like that right there, if that wasn't real tight in there and that thing could shift at the bottom, you still drop a screw in it that way. It doesn't change your picket measurement on top and bottom.
Well, you want to make sure.
That's true.
You definitely want to make sure if you're cutting your rail, sometimes say the top here is 38 and a half and your bottom of your wall is 38. You know, you don't want to cut it so short that you don't have, enough material in these cuffs that you can't get a screw in it to hold it.
Quarter inch is a good rule of thumb for.
Yeah, just cut the minimum amount off to get your rail in.
I was talking about if the rail was already cut for your opening. You didn't have that option to cut, and it was a little wobbly in there or something.
Yes, to keep it centered.
Try to keep it as centered up as possible, checking your picket spacing and all that, and try to put that screw. If you have to, and we talked about this before, you can put a screw in the side of the cuff. If you absolutely have to, that's
Last resort.
Last case scenario. To make sure, you always want to make sure you're screwing into material. You don't want to just put a blind screw in there. That's defeating the purpose of cuffing it and screwing the work order, which is which. So you need to look for that to know, especially for your external, for your laying out of your pipe, so you can stage it the right way. You're either going to be labeled 1 through 10 from the bottom, or it's going to be 1 through 10 from the top down. So you have to pay attention to that. So you get the right pieces in the right spots, because they might all look the same, but they might be 1 inch to 3 inches or 5 inches difference. If you get them in the wrong spot, it won't work right. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the external. This is a piece of external, a typical piece of external. 16 inches of level, 12 inches of level with a 4-inch return on top and bottom, makes that length 16 inches. Okay, and the way we determine our length of our pipe is measuring down from the top nose of the step, slide it past till our tape touches the floor, and that is this length from here to here. Okay, just so you got an idea of how the pipe is measured. It might be a little difficult to see for some of you guys over here, but I'm going to try to explain to you exactly what we're doing. I'm going to stage the pipe to where the handrail is touching the nose of the step. Let me see if I can give you a better visual down here. So you're going to stage your handrail on your steps. So this bend is right on the nose of the step. Okay? When you do that, we're going to take our level and hold right on the end point. And we're going to level up. Set this level, and we have two marks on our level, one at 36, one at 30 3/4. The 36-inch mark, you're going to just put as fine a marks as you can so you can see them, but you don't mark up the walls because sometimes they're finished painted walls, so you don't want a lot of pencil marks. So we'll level up off the end of our pipe, mark our 36, and that tells us how far back to set the pipe and the height. Okay. Leveled up put my level right on the end of the pipe, and I'm leveling it up, and I've put a mark at 36 inches. Okay. And then is where you determine the center of your bracket. Your bracket is going to fall in the center of that level return. Two things you have to be aware of. If you're mounting to a solid surface, or if you're mounting to studs behind the wall. Your brackets always have to hit the studs. You have to attach to the studs. You can't just screw to siding and plywood. Okay, if we got concrete, of course that's solid wall. Some of our jobs have a piece of 2x6 wood material covered with AZAC, and you can attach that with your 2-inch or 3-inch screws for your bracket. So we're going to measure up from the center of this post, or from the center of the handrail, excuse me, up 30 3/4 to the bottom of the handrail bracket. And set the handrail bracket up there and attach it to the wall, with making sure you're hitting the studs or your trim or the concrete. You can come down here to the bottom and do the exact same thing. You do not need to use your level on the bottom for your 36. All you have to do is pull up 30 3/4 or use the mark off of your level, making sure your bracket is in the center of your level part of your rail, or as close as possible so you are attaching to solid material behind the wall. Alright? Who's up? Dave, come up here.
Now, would you leave that center bracket off during this?
Yeah, this center bracket is not attached at this time. So we're going to set our handrail first. So you got your marks for your pipe, for your 36 mark that tells you in or out, because this pipe will slide in and out, so you need to make sure you're on your 36 mark at the very end of the pipe. If this pipe is too far back from the nose of this step to the top of this handrail, it will not be 36, it'll be less. If it's too far out, it'll be more than 36, and the chances are that it could go over 38. So we try to maintain everything at 36. It's the end of this pipe. And if these brackets are set on 30 3/4, you can pull this measurement, and it'll be 36 right here, and it'll be 36 off the noses of the steps. Okay? It can vary a little bit as long as you're not over 38.
Or under 34.
Or under 34, excuse me. Alright, so now we're going to attach it, making sure this point of this rail is right on that line, and you're going to screw it straight up. You want to maintain your screw. A lot of you guys probably experienced this. If you do not screw straight up square into that pipe will roll on you because it's round. You have your top set level and it is tight to the wall. This bottom tends to turn out sometimes. So just make sure before you screw this to push the bottom in and pull this out, and then have it attached so this handrail sits tight as possible to the wall. If you run into a situation where it's real bad and you have some kind of material behind the wall, we can pre-drill this pipe and put a screw in there to hold it tight to the wall, but try to eliminate that. That's in a worst case scenario, to hold those returns tight to the wall. But you have to make sure you got something solid behind there to do that. Next step to do, once you got your rail attached to the top and bottom brackets, is you want to measure from your center of your bend to the bend at the bottom, and we have 80 inches. And you're gonna, if you want 2 brackets in there, you'll take 80 and divide it by 3. If you want 1 bracket, you just divide it by 2. It's always going to be 1 more space than you have brackets. The reason we do that is so we have the brackets set at equal distances. The handrail brackets cannot be more than 54 inches apart. Eli was stating before, this top level piece, depending on how far back that post is or how that post's mounted, is not always bent like this. It might be just a straight bend with this hoop on it, and you may have to bend this bend in there to get your handrail to sit on the right profile for your 36 inches. We're trying to maintain 36 inches from the nose of the step to the top of the handrail, no matter where we are. Okay? No, this is going to be level. Okay. Then we'll take this pipe here, just imagine it's not being cut, it's sitting on this bracket. You're going to maintain your 2 1/4 inches or 2 3/8 inches spacing by holding the bracket up here, and you're going to adjust this handrail up or down to fit your line that you have chalked here at that 33 1/4. No, I'm gonna. So then once you get this reveal the same on this piece of pipe, and you know your bend's right at the top and it's level, I'm going to take and mark the pipe dead center between the 2 screw holes in the handrail bracket and cut it. Okay? Cut it, file it together. Just make sure, and when you're doing your handrail, that these the insides of this bracket are horizontal, so your screw will go up into that slot. If they're turned, you know, up or down, that screw tends to hit into those backer rods that are in there, and it either break the screw off or strip out. So we have our pipe bent, marked, we'll have our height established over there. We've cut it to the length. So what we're going to do, we got our top bracket set where we needed it to be at 36 for our handrail. And what we'll do now is we'll pre-drill this pipe and splice with a 5/32 drill bit and tack it in place. Okay. Until it sits flush, and attach it. Right there. Screw the bracket in and attach your handrail to the brackets. That handrail set and it's right following your line, your 36 inch, 33 1/4 inch chalk line. Come down to the bottom, and I usually mark 36 inches. So that tells me how far I have to bend my pipe down to that mark. 6 or 8 feet long with the return. It's got a 90 return on it. Okay. This is where the bender comes into place to where you have to bend this pipe down to meet this 36 height right here. Okay. So what we'll have one guy up here, and we'll hold the pipes beside each other. Taking a handrail bracket and holding it on the end of the post to maintain the proper distance from the post, whether it's an angle bracket or a level bracket. Level bracket's usually easier. Okay, and then you want to line the 2 pipes up so you maintain the same line of projection. Okay, bring your handrail down. You want to line the 2 pieces up. Okay, this is real critical. You need to make sure that these 2 handrails are following the same profile, and then that determines how high you are above this 36 inch mark. So that tells you how far you have to bend this pipe down. Okay? So once we have that established, we got our pipe lined up, and we have our handrail bracket sitting here, and it tells me that I'm about 4 inches. I need to come down about 4.5 inches with this handrail. Now, I always leave it in that second hole. It's always been in there.
He came up with a
It's
good
not
idea.
too high, it is not too low.
Right.
You get it any lower, your pipe doesn't want to fit in there right, you know, you're struggling to get in. If you come up another hole or so, you're bending it 20 times to get it to come up to snug the pipe up. This needs to go down, so I need to make sure this is in the right way. If I have it the wrong way, it's going to be bent the wrong way, so the hammer's going to be coming up. So just pay attention to what you're doing. Okay. On a typical stairway installation, when that bottom post is so close to the nose of the step, you want to put your handrail in as far as you can without touching the side of this bender. I usually keep it about a thumb thickness away. And tight and snug it up. And then you take your level and level this return. Can you see, guys, see what I'm doing?
Put a square on it.
Put a square on it.
Yeah, sometimes the deck's not level where you're sitting on. That could be a big problem. It's easier to put one on the side of the thing and look at the top profile.
Okay. So you got it snugged up, you got it level. We needed to come down 4.5 inches to the top of this pipe. Typically, most benders bend anywhere from 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch at a bend. A bend is a full rotation of this hand, the pump all the way up and all the way down. I consider that one pump. I established I needed about 4.5 inches, so I'm estimating, say 8 to 9 bends. So I'm going to bend 9 bends. Then you got to dry fit your pipe. The worst thing you can do is overbend this thing, so work your way down to that 36-inch mark. Whether you got to take it to the bender 2 or 3 times. So actually, I'm still about 1.5 inches. I'm about 1.5 inches from being down to where I need to be. Got your pipe established with your bend that you know you're at your 36 mark. You need to hold it exactly where it needs to be as far as your straightness, and on your mark here, keeping it aligned nice and straight. And he's going to mark right where the 2 pieces of pipe meet. Hold it down, go down, right there. Crisp, clear line that you know where you're going to be cutting it. You do not want to cut it short. It can be a little long, it's fine, but you want to be as accurate as possible. And then we'll cut it off. Okay. And what I usually do, and what I always do, is you got to file this inside and out, and you have to paint the end of the pipe. It hides that silver. Silver really stands out. Line it up so it's still following the same profile. Always double check yourself to make sure you're on the same plane and that you're still below your mark or at your mark. And then attach the handrail bracket to the post. This return here, the wraparound. The reason why we do the small splice is when they put this 90 on there and bend it, the return is so small, you have a limited amount of round pipe. Back here on this, the closer you get to this bend, the more it distorts the pipe. And this does not fit in there. So we use a shorter piece to allow it to fit in here properly without being jammed.
Shorty and the long beside each other.
Yeah, the two different sizes. So we want to use the small one on our returns. Okay, and they'll fit right in there. And that doesn't bind it, because if you get this long one, if you use a long one and you try to jam it in there, it's only going to go so far. So it might only go 1.5 inches. Then you won't be able to get your next piece of pipe all the way tight. So then you'd be taking it back off, taking this and cutting it, where you should have just used a 2-incher. What we're going to do here, we got our handrail bracket snapped, line snapped, and we put our handrail bracket right on that line. And what we're going to do here is, we're going to take and keep this reveal between the bottom of the handrail and this line straight. So you want to kind of eyeball it all the way down, no matter how far you're going. You want to make sure it's following the profile of this line. So we're right there. Make sure you measure off the nose, your post 2 3/8 in between, and then mark the nose of this step on your pipe.
Off that pole, or this post here is the one you're going to be measuring off of?
Yeah, I'm coming off this one. I was just saying you're going to measure off the furthest one out, because this is where our handrail is. But 2 3/8 inch gap between the handrail, and that'll tell you where your bend needs to be. If you need to have a longer level before it goes down, that's the easiest way to do it. Cut and pre-bent. This was pre-bent. I cut it to the length. What you have to do to establish this length is the same thing. Hold your handrail bracket, okay, against it. Set your post on there, and mark these two pieces of pipe where they meet, and then cut it off on the saw. Here comes around with a 5-inch return. That return goes in between the pickets. Actually, don't have that piece of rail set, but it's already been bent, pre-bent in the shop, and I had to cut the return to fit that up there. So we'll go ahead and put it on. And my return cut, I will put this splice in, and I will pop rivet it so it don't slide in and out. Then I will take this handrail and put it on there. This cut right here, a lot of people have a lot of problems with this cut. You want this cut to be as clean and as tight as possible. Whether you got to manipulate the cut on either pipe, you want it as tight as possible. Take and pop rivet it underneath. 2 ways you can do this. Eli told you one way, that you can take a measure off the floor and set this handrail at 36 inches to this top level. Okay.
Mark for the level.
Yeah.
Behind you.
Or you can take your tape, slide it down the nose of the step, and where it touches, you want to put a pencil mark.
Right here.
Yeah. Okay. Put a pencil mark on the floor, and that tells you right here where this bend should be. If you line that pipe up to that bend, this should be 36 inches, because you've maintained that profile of the pipe coming down. So that's where it would hit, and it would wrap around. This would be level. So double check that. Do the same thing with your other side. You can use the level, putting it up against here, holding it level, and check your measurement so these stick out the same way, the same height. One thing you have to be aware of too is you don't want any of your handrail brackets, if you can help it, ending up on any of these bends. Okay? This handrail bracket will not seat properly, or the pipe won't seat properly on the handrail bracket when it's on a bend. So you may have to adjust your bracket. Marker 33 1/4. That's the same measurement, 33 1/4. That's this chalk line to the top of the handrail bracket. So we can set this handrail bracket, and we know where to set this one. Because it's going to catch, it's going to hit this handrail bracket, there's going to be a handrail bracket here, and this is going to go out and float. Right on that mark. Right. The easiest way to tell, and the only way to tell, is when you're standing at the bottom of the stairs looking up. That tells you left and right. That's how we do our handrails and our guardrails and all that stuff. It tells you right and left. The same way with these handrail brackets. Put the flat part that you're going to attach to your post against the palm of your hand, it should point up the stairs if you have it in the right hand. Okay, can you all see that? This is pointing at me, so it's wrong. This would be a left-hand bracket. Okay, it's in my left hand. This is the right-hand bracket. It points up the stairs. That's the easiest way. That's how I explain it to all my guys to learn left and right. But if you find that when you attach your top and your bottoms and your handrail bracket is down, don't try to pull the pipe down to the handrail bracket. Move the handrail bracket up to the pipe so it stays nice and straight. Because when you stand back at it, you'll be able to see that dip. So put those two in. Make sure, you always want to make sure that your handrail fits right in the handrail bracket. It sits right in that seat. It seats properly in the handrail bracket.